Well, I just got myself a brand new 2022 KTM 500 EXC. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube about the first ride and walkarounds while it's stock, but really I guess thought I'd show one that has the stuff I put on it. Kind of ready to go now. So I just figured I'd do a walkaround. Kind of start from the top, and one of the first things you have to do when you get a good dirt bike is get rid of the mirrors, because the mirrors are pretty boxy and terrible. So I've got one of these ram mount mirrors. I know they have a short version and a long version of that. That's the one I've had on previous year's bikes, and I really like that a lot. Also got a phone mount, because I use my phone as a GPS exclusively. And of course you need to have a USB port. So I've got a USB port that I wired back directly to the battery. And that makes it so that your USB can power your phone while your GPS is going. Let's see, we've got the hand guards. I got the Pro Bend, that's the ones I like. I got a LED headlight. The LED headlight is not that bright. I think it was Tusk brand, and it was $9.95. What I like about it is when I ride in a pack, all my buddies have regular headlights, or they have the Baja Designs headlights that are really bright, but I don't ride at night very much, so that lets them look in their rearview mirror and see me with my bright LED light and tell me apart from everybody else, so that's good. You can see I got the Radiator Guards on there. Bulletproof is what I chose. They're freaking expensive, but what I like about them is that they were very solid. They go around to the top, mostly around the side and the front. They also do go down around the bottom, making it so that if you tip over, you're covered. They also were the easiest billet radiator mount that I've ever used. They bolted up with 4 simple bolts, and everything was where it was supposed to be. I've never really had that before. In previous versions, everything I had to do with my radiator guard required me to stretch the tank guards out, and sometimes you had to cross-thread bolts to get them started in there. Also, I've got a 3-gallon gas tank on there. That was the first thing I did. 3-gallon gas tank goes a little lower than a standard gas tank, so you have to be aware of the fuel line. The fuel line sometimes has to be repositioned. You might have to get a different bend to it. You might even have to get a different fuel line. I did not. You do want to make sure that you can push that button and eject it for when you want to pull your tank off. Also, it's got a fuel cap on it that has a one-way valve so that it won't pressurize or vacuum. I've replaced the stock, air vent, because this also has a free flow valve in it. This tank has a valve in the cap, but I don't really think it's that great. A little bit of mud, a little bit of dirt, dust could lock that up and pressurize your tank or vacuum your tank. So that's one thing that I put on. I also put on a Enduro Engineering skid plate, bash guard, and that's, I know a lot of people like the new stuff that's carbon fiber. A lot of people like the stuff that's space fabrics and all kinds of different carbon fiber type stuff. They're a little more slippery. This one's aluminum. I've had this on previous bikes and I really liked it. One of the things that I like about this particular guard with the new EXC is that there are 2 bolts down here, right here, and on the other side another bolt over there, and the EXC has threaded inserts in the frame, so you can actually bolt it right up with these 2 bolts instead of having to put that bracket that goes back behind there where you have to thread into it through these detened holes here. A little bit different. I like that a lot better. Of course, in the back there's still the double bolts that pull it up. They're right there. That's the bracket that comes around. Anyhow, it's a really good solid setup, and it protects you from stuff from the side. I went ahead and sprung my shock and my forks for my weight. I used Racetech stuff. I always have. I believe the forks went up to 0.85. I'm a 225-pound guy. Before I put on my 60-pound gear, which includes water and a tool kit and spares and lots of stuff, so I had to spring up quite a bit. I got the KTM Power Parts swing arm guard, which I don't like to scratch up my swing arm, and I always do, so I got one of those. I also used the Enduro Engineering rear brake caliper protector. I've seen a lot of these shark fin style, and this one of the things I like about it is that the shark fin itself can be replaced right here with 2 bolts. So in the event this shark fin gets damaged, it's already got a couple gouges on it from one ride. If it gets bent or damaged, you can replace just that part without replacing the whole shark fin and brake assembly, which is pretty good. I put on the aluminum and steel sprocket guards. Super Sprox is what they call. I've geared my bike 1452. You know what, I take that back. 1450 is what it's at right now. I do a lot of single track up in Big Bear, and in the winter I go out and ride in the deserts and do open desert, and I'll change it to probably a 48, 45 or something like that for the winter when I go out high-speed desert running. I do like the Moto Z tires. I also like the tubeless. I know all of the things about tires. Everybody has their own preference, but the Moto Z tire has been a long-lasting, really good tire for me. I've just experimented on this last tire change. I put on the Tractionator Enduro IT Intermediate Terrain. I'm using the 130 size. I usually use the 140, but 130 is what I'm running this time. A little bit smaller, but I think it's great. I just mounted them, and they've still got slime leaking out of the side. I use slime as the lubricant when I put it together. I then use the slime in the tubeless section, and I actually put a couple pumps of slime in the small inner tube that you pump up to 100 or 110 psi through that valve. I love the tubeless system. It saved me a couple times. You might notice I've also had to balance my wheels because the tubeless system right across from the bead lock, you usually balance them with the equal amount, and I've done that on every time. This is the front Tractionator Enduro, and this is the ST. This is a soft terrain. I've really had good experiences with the intermediate terrain front tire, but this soft really lasts a long time. The last time I had it on, it lasted longer than the rear, sometimes as long as 2. So this is what I guess they call their fatty. This is the 90-121, and I'm going to give it a try, see if I like it. Let's see, I've put on the Acerbis front rotor guard. I do not do extreme enduro. I don't try to shove my front wheel between 8-inch rocks, and so I'm not really worried about bashing this with, you know, a steel type or an aluminum type rim rotor protector. So I use the Acerbis plastic, and that covers 90% of the damage that I could get. I've also recently just got these Acerbis fork covers that go down over the tip of your fork, and they cover in case you do get some rocks flying up from the guy that you're following, and they don't bash up the bottom of your bolts and bottom of your forks. I also use the seal savers. The seal savers are a sock that you put on. You do have to take the front end apart to do this because they have to come on from the top down. But the seal savers are a neoprene wetsuit material sock that goes on. You zip tie them up at the top in place. They cover the entire fork tube all the way down. A lot of times we've been riding in canyons where there was clay and water, and the clay would splash up on the fork tubes and then dry, and then you'd go through a full G-out, which would take your suspension all the way down, and that hardened mud stuck to the tube would go up and rip your seals. And we've done that a couple times lately, and I've seen 50% of the people in our group trying to clean out their fork seals with the seal savers that you shove up in there, and everybody had oil all over their boots and their engine from the blown fork seals. So these cover the whole fork tube. That way when you get rocks that bounce off your front tire into your bash guard and then bounce forward into the back of your forks, those are also covered. So those are pretty important for the way I ride. Let's see, motor-wise, I did get the GET ECU, and the GET ECU I got from Moto, and they come pre-programmed with 2 different maps. So they give you a map switch which you mount on your handlebars, and you've got a switch right here, and so there's map 1, and then you click it down here, and that's map 2. Map 1 is full fuel, you know, full style racing, as much fuel as your bike can handle. And then if you get a tank full of bad gas, or if you have to fill up with, you know, not 91 or 92 octane that we usually use, you can click it into the second map, and that kind of, I think it removes a little bit of the ignition advance, turns your fan on a few degrees cooler, makes it so that if your bike is detonating or if it's running a little too hot with that lower octane fuel, that it won't damage your engine. It doesn't quite make as much power, but I have not been able to feel the difference yet. Maybe just a little bit. One of the things I did was to remove the reed cage from the inside of the air box. That was really quite simple to do. Initially, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but I rode it around when I was breaking it in. I did a couple hours of street riding, 1 hour, and then changed the oil that was in the bike stock from the factory. Put in mineral oil, 1 more hour, ripping around pretty strong, and then do another oil change. And this time I put in the full synthetic oil. I use the stuff KTM recommends, but whatever anybody uses is up to them. Anyhow, after that was done, I did go riding last weekend, and I found the bike to be very strong, low center of gravity, lighter weight, and the bike is narrower. When you grip it with your legs, it felt much narrower than my 2015 bike did. Removing the reed valves in the airbox, I took it out after I did that. At the same time, I had removed the smog, but I took it out, and that really made quite a difference. I didn't think I'd feel a thing, but I did. So anyhow, taking those reed cages out was a nice little thing too, and that worked very well for this bike. The Recluse hydraulic rear brake lever that I apply on a handlebar. In order to fit that in, you do have to put this 1 inch wide narrow switch assembly, which replaces your stock one. But the reason I use this high quality Recluse switch is because I got used to using compressor releases on my previous bikes, and so I stand up going down hills and I use the rear brake sometimes, and that handle really makes it easy to do that while you're standing up, where it's difficult sometimes to get at the rear brake lever. So that hydraulic line comes down and comes to the top of your master cylinder in the back for the rear wheel. You remove the cap that's on there, you put in this new unit, an O-ring goes down in there, and then this new unit fits down in, and you tighten that on, and then you route the hose up under the tank and up underneath the bike. You do have kind of a proprietary bleeding system that you have to do to get all the air out of there, but once you bleed it, it's amazing. So it's a really high quality product, also around $300, so it's not cheap. Instead of putting on the exhaust, I went ahead and got one of the opened end caps. Wasn't very expensive to do, and you can see in the back here, if I stick my finger in, I don't know if you can see it, there is a screen in there. You can touch the screen. It's still a little warm because I just wrote it. So that is a US approved spark arrestor. So not too loud, but it opens the bike up quite a bit, lets it bark a little bit. I did use a fender Eliminator Kit, and that was also through Moto. They get rid of the turn signals that are sticking out off the body and the entire rear fender assembly that has a license plate bracket. And the turn signal is now in this tail light. So right here is the tail light. The left hand will blink when it's a left turn. The right hand side will blink when it's a right turn. And then I've also put on the Moto turn signals in the front. And they basically wrap around your fork tubes right here. And they flash pretty brightly. I guess I could probably turn it on and actually show you. It might be kind of loud, but so a left hand, I've got them set up so they run as running lights, so they're both going. But if I turn on one of the turn signals, you'll see that flashes pretty brightly. That also required an LED flash assembly that goes underneath your number plate. There's how that rear works. And those seem to be pretty effective. If you put on the key removal system like I did, you'll notice that when you turn the bike off, the electricity stays on and the lights stay on for about 10 seconds. And then they click off. So the key Eliminator Kit was also, I believe that was from Sickass. And you basically remove your front headlight shroud. You put in that LED flasher in there, which also includes the LED flasher. I can't even see it, but somewhere down in here is a LED flasher for your turn signal. There it is over here. Hard to see where my finger is. And all of those go LED. So you've got LED all the way around the whole bike. And the key Eliminator Kit makes it so that everything works right off of your switch. So you turn your switch on, and then in order to activate the system, you actually have to tap the starter button, which engages your fuel pump in your tank. You can even hear it. Turn it on, and then tap it. You can hear the fuel pump runs for about 5 seconds. And then if the bike does not start, the power to the bike does not come on. But if the bike starts, then when the ignition sends a little bit of power to the ignition system, it activates a solenoid that turns on the headlight and the lights and the power and starts charging the battery. But it doesn't do that when the switch is off after that 10 seconds has elapsed. So that's pretty much all I've got on this bike. 2022. That's the way I like it. And I hope you have good riding and good luck with whatever bike you're riding.